pain was still like a 9 or a 10, just excruciating to the point where you're just unable to really function.
His spinal problems turned out to be much more complicated and hard to treat. He went on to have several more surgeries, but got no relief. So his doctors gave him a prescription for methadone, a powerful opioid drug, and he stayed on it for 7 years.
It helped immensely. It brought my pain down to 5 or 6, where I could function fairly well throughout the day. I mean, I could go to church every weekend. I could help my wife shop. I could help around the house a little bit.
From McCann's perspective, the opioids were working, but then, as concerns about the epidemic grew, he started getting pushback from his doctors.
Every time I saw a clinician, my opioids were reduced.
His pain started to increase, and he worried that he'd be cut off the drug entirely.
Basically, life wasn't going to be worth living if I couldn't get this pain under control.
McCann is not alone. Physician Stefan Kertész says there are lots of patients with similar stories.
I have certainly met a good number of patients who have not found better options, and they are now taking opioids for chronic pain.
Kertész is a professor at the University of Alabama at Birmingham School of Medicine. He says some doctors feel caught between a rock and a hard place. With the rise in opioid overdose deaths, there's a lot of pressure to limit prescriptions. CDC guidelines point to the serious risks of high dosages and long-term use. But Kertész says some people who take opioids long-term seem to benefit. So he says it's not always in the best interest of the patient to cut them off.
Do I think we prescribed opioids too much over 20 years? Absolutely. We caused new addiction in some people by prescribing opioids too aggressively. But the idea that you can simply take them away, sometimes from people who need them, is mistaken.
Kertész knows that his position is controversial. He pushes against the current thinking so much, I had to ask him if he ever worked for the pharmaceutical companies that market these drugs.
I have never worked a day in my life with the pharmaceutical industry, and I have no interest in doing it in the future.
Kertész says what he is an advocate for is helping people in pain.
I do hope for better medications that have less potential for addiction, but I think human suffering is really complicated, and doctors need to have room to make a professional decision together with their patient about what works best for them.
As for John McCann, just last month he had a procedure to ease the nerve compression in his back, and for now, he's optimistic.
So far, I'm happy, and I'm hoping to be opiate-free. I don't know if I'll get there, but I'm going to try.
He's down to a daily Percocet, which is nowhere near the strength of the opioids he had been taking for so many years. Alice Mulberry, NPR News.
Well, I want to stay on this topic because this question of how to find that balance when you have patients in pain and doctors who are fearing addiction is coming up this week as the Society for Neuroscience holds its meetings here in Washington, D.C. And here's John Hamilton has been attending, and he's with us in studio. Hi, John.
Hi.
So is this the future? We're looking at people who are in chronic pain, like we just heard, having to struggle to get treatment because of these genuine fears about addiction.
It's the future that doctors and scientists are trying to avoid. But here's the problem. In the U.S. right now, you've got 2 million people who are using opioids. At the same time, you've got more than 50 million people, some estimates say 100 million, who are in chronic pain. So how do you balance trying to curb drug addiction while you're still looking out for people who are in pain? And I should say, doctors have faced this dilemma before. Back in the 1980s, there was the war on drugs, there was the Nancy Reagan Just Say No campaign, and back then the concern was largely illicit drugs, but it had an effect on doctors, and many of them became really reluctant to prescribe addictive drugs. And there were cases where cancer patients could not get drugs to relieve their pain.
So a lot of neuroscientists here in Washington, D.C. this week, you've been spending time with them. Are you learning anything from them?
Yes, I already have learned a few things from them. Later today, of course, there's going to be a panel of scientists who are talking about precisely this topic, addiction and opioids and pain. And one of the things researchers have learned is how many different brain circuits there are involved in both addiction and pain. And for example, there's now a whole lot of research showing how the brain actually creates what they would call our perception of pain. So for instance, when you stub your toe, there's a signal that goes up into your brain, but that signal, the strength of that signal, is affected by all these things: attention, emotion, your mood. And And so, if, like, you're at the dentist and you're expecting to feel pain, you will feel more pain. If you're depressed, you're likely to feel more pain. If you're distracted, you may feel less pain.
So many factors.
So many factors.
So is there a way to use that knowledge and this reality that you are so effective to come up with better medication for pain, maybe avoid the condition?
That is the hope. I was talking to a scientist named Ed Wilson from Pacific Northwest University. He's the guy who's going to be moderating the panel later today on opioids and pain. And he told me the problem with opioids is that they are this really blunt instrument for treating pain. So at the same time they're hitting these circuits called pain, they're also hitting these circuits called reward, pleasure, and all the things that are related to addiction. So the idea is to come up with drugs that are much more specific. And there are a few candidates out there, actually. One of the most interesting ones I've been hearing about is made from the venom of a type of snail. And what's great about it is it targets totally different receptors in the body than opioids do, and yet it appears to be much more powerful as a pain reliever. So there is reason for hope.
NPR's John Hamilton. Thanks, John. Welcome. This is NPR News.
It has been more than a month since Hurricane Maria hit the island of Puerto Rico, and the ongoing crisis is not just about the lack of power and clean water, it's also affecting mental health of Puerto Ricans.
Are you safe? Yes. Are you okay? That's a different question.
I'm Kelly McEvers, addressing mental health needs in Puerto Rico this afternoon on All Things Considered on NPR News.
This afternoon, 3:30 to 6:30 on News 88.9 KNPR. Support for Nevada Public Radio comes from Comprehensive Cancer Centers of Nevada, an affiliate of the U.S. Oncology Network, pursuing cancer treatments like genomics to fight cancers caused by genetics, using elements that cause cancer to treat it. cccnevada.com.
Hi, I'm Melanie Cannon with Flow Riders. Want to put Recycle Day on your calendar Saturday, November the 18th from 8 to noon in our parking lot. We're on the CSN West Charleston campus. Look for the bright orange flags.
And Goodwill of Southern Nevada will be here, taking all the things that you would anticipate from Goodwill. Here we are, the change of season. Maybe you've got clothes that are no longer going to be useful to you, and maybe there's housewares that will find a new home and be treasures and valuable to someone else.
You know, Flo, one of my favorites is old ornaments, children's toys, all of those.
Holiday decor. KNPR.org, you'll find all the details about Recycle Day.
This is News 88.9 KNPR. I'm Nicole Robinson Carroll. U.S. scientists and land managers who have been designing strategies to protect the sage grouse across the American West are reevaluating plans. Federal officials wrap up a series of public meetings about the grouse with 3 sessions in Utah this week. The meetings come ahead of a November 27th cutoff on public comment after Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke ordered a reassessment of sage grouse protection plans, which had been condemned by ranchers, miners, and energy developers. Zinke says he wants to make sure the amendments adopted under the Obama administration don't harm local economies in 11 western states. Conservationists say it's a thinly veiled attempt to allow more livestock grazing and drilling. They warn it ultimately could land a pin-sized bird on the endangered species list. The Vegas Golden Knights have 2 road games ahead this week, at Edmonton tomorrow night and Vancouver on Thursday. They stand in second place in the NHL's Pacific Division, 3 points behind the Los Angeles Kings. You'll find more of the day's news at knpr.org. Highs in the 70s today and tomorrow, the mid-70s in Las Vegas. Overnight lows around 50. Business owners and HR professionals can post job openings, then review candidates, take notes, and schedule interviews from an online dashboard. Learn more at Indeed.com. I'm from the Annie E. Vesey Foundation.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Steve Instrument. And I'm David Green. At an Asian summit meeting in the Philippines today, President Trump met with leaders of India, Japan, Australia. These are 3
Sure, North Korea's Kim Jong-un comes to his senses and stops what Turnbull called his reckless provocation.
It sounds like the kind of partnership and alliance that President Trump is looking for as he confronts Pyongyang.
That's right, and as you noted, Japan, Australia, India, these are all sort of the cornerstones of this Indo-Pacific picture that Trump is trying to paint on this trip.
And Scott, I guess it seemed like the elephant in the room on this trip has been President Trump getting the United States out of that big Pacific trade deal when he first came into office. I mean, how has he been handling that balance? Trying to send a message of, we want to work with you, but hey, there was that trade deal.
Trump insists that he has made a lot of progress on trade during this trip, but he has not offered any details. He says he'll fill us in when he gets back to the United States. Of course, Trump has said in the past that the U.S. has been taken advantage of by a lot of fast-growing economies in Asia.
We've made a lot of big progress on trade. We have deficits with almost everybody, great deficits, very quickly and very deficits. So that's what I'm doing. If I check it, I'll probably find that deficit. Oh no, it's real wrong.
You could hear Prime Minister Turnbull there chiming in, correcting President Trump that the U.S. in fact had a $12.6 billion trade surplus with Australia last year.
Fact-checking while standing with another world leader. Let me just ask you about President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. They had these informal conversations. Trump comes out talking about whether or not he believes the Russians interfered in the presidential election. It sounds like an evolving message.
Trump said that Vladimir Putin told him once again that Russia had not interfered, and Trump said that when Putin says that, he believes that Putin believes it. But when pressed by reporters, Trump later said he goes along with the U.S. intelligence community, which of course says Russia did put its thumb on the scale, and moreover that Russia did so to help Donald Trump.
NPR Scott Horsley traveling with President Trump in Asia. Scott, thanks.
Good to be with you, David.
And let's spend the next few minutes in this country, in Sutherland Springs, Texas. That's where a gunman opened fire on worshipers at the First Baptist Church, killing 26 people. Many of those who survived gathered yesterday, and NPR's Lena Fadel was there.
Hundreds of people are packed in a tent on a baseball field in Sutherland Springs. Some came from across Texas to pray with the First Baptist Church, and some came from across the country. At the front of the tent are the surviving parishioners of the church. Pastor Frank Pomeroy wasn't there that Sunday, but his daughter was killed and his congregation nearly wiped out.
Folks, we have the freedom to choose, and rather than choose darkness as the one young man did that day, I say we choose life. And by choosing...
Pomeroy urges people to stay strong in their faith.
I know it's hard for many of you to be here today, but you're here. And you're standing, and you're clapping, and you're praising the Lord.
He's funny at times and stoic, but in the middle of his sermon, he breaks down for just a moment.
I know every single name. I know everyone who gave their life that day, some of which were my best friends, and my daughter. And I guarantee you, beyond any shadow of a doubt, they are dancing with Jesus today.
The message is clear, not to wallow, but to live, and not to let this attack destroy their faith. After the service, at the meal, parishioners walked to their cars.
2 today, 1 tomorrow, the big one Wednesday for the whole group.
That's April Higgins, daughter and not the member of the Campbell she wrote to. The Holcombs lost 8 members of their family.
Is there a normal after this again? Never. No, I don't think so, but we'll come together stronger.
A few blocks away is the church where her friends were killed, and she spends almost every Sunday. Now it's a memorial. The blood is painted over, the windows filled, and the room is still lit.
Next group, get ready. Pull your hand, come up forward.
They open to the public Sunday evening. A few people are behind the table. Inside, recordings of past services play on the wall. There's a white chair for everyone in the seat. Her name's painted on the wall with her friends on each side. Heaven, and the list goes on. A single red rose is placed on each chair. The chairs positioned precisely where the bodies fit. Dozens of people wait to go in, many from out of town like Carolina Gamboa. After her own church service in San Antonio, her pastor let them all know that 3 fellow churchgoers had guns for their protection. She said she had to come, and she had to see. And she walked away thinking this.
That it can happen anywhere. And we need to be at peace. We need to be at peace with our enemies, with each other, with family. Just, I don't know. But it starts today.
No one knows if this building will be demolished or left as a permanent memorial. For now, the congregation will pray outside the very place the massacre occurred. And the little white building will be open 5 days a week, so people don't forget what happened here. For Wilfalden,